Good morning. Happy Tuesday, everybody. How's everybody doing this morning? Good morning, Tony. Good morning, Royal Wave. Good to see you guys. And the other four people who are in here who are watching and haven't said hi yet. Hi. Okay. So, listen, remember last night when I couldn't click the present button? So whatever the issue was has been resolved. I am now good morning, Corky. I am now able to click the present button. I don't have to use the hotkeys that StreamYard. Hi, Don provides, which I appreciate, because I am a creature of habit, and quite frankly, although I can do it a different way, I don't like to. I like to do it the way I always do it. It's a problem. I know. Sometimes you have to change and evolve, and I'm down with evolving and changing and being a better person and all of that. Like that's cool, but when it comes to just like everyday things like a routine, I don't really like to change for change's sake. You know what I'm saying? So, this morning we should be hearing uh, the judge's ruling from yesterday on these audio recordings from inside the Wagner vehicles and excuse me, and phone calls. He should be ruling on that this morning. I must confess, as far as that goes, I am more than, hey, Kimberly Jerome, hey. Oh, thank you, Royal Wave. I appreciate that. And 5, 6, 7, 8. Good morning. Good morning, Amelia Sparkles. I I must confess to being more than a little perplexed at it's the okay, I understand the defense's argument. That's not where my confusion comes in. It is in the audio that they chose as if it had exculpatory evidence in it. When, in my opinion, when they played the audio in full, it actually painted a much more sinister picture of one George Washington Wagner IV. Because again, his defense is, I didn't know, didn't show, didn't go, right? I wasn't there. His is the shaggy defense. It wasn't me. And then also, in addition, it's not my fault I was born a Wagner. I've been distancing myself from this family. Oh, okay. So you were distancing yourself from your family. And that's why you went ahead and uh, discussed at length moving to Alaska, the potential home rental in Alaska. And furthermore, we're on board with letting your family use your credit score and your credit to put the rental home in your name, right? I don't know how y'all distance yourselves from people, but I can assure you that this girl doesn't allow people I'm distancing myself from and who I want no parts of to use my social security and birth date and my credit to rent a home. Okay. That's not how I do it when I'm distancing myself from somebody. In fact, you can't. That's the most, aside from having a child, right? Letting somebody put something in your name, attaching to your credit, is next level entanglement and quite literally the opposite of distancing yourself. So I am that this was that specific audio that they played at the end of court yesterday when they had that hearing is literally the opposite of distancing yourself. And I wanted to talk just real briefly about something that I had kind of had forgotten to mention last night. So during last week's proceedings, there was audio played of Angela Wagner, and it she was discussing, and I believe that this is an interview that she gave to the BCI. So this was the interview that was recorded when they were on their way back from Canada, from Alaska the first time. Okay, when they went to visit and check things out, right? Scoping it out for a potential place to live. So they interviewed her, and in that interview, she is discussing marital issues between she and Billy. And I find it interesting that there was a period of time after the unaliving, after the crimes, but before they moved to Alaska, that Billy and Angela Wagner were not living together. I found that to be interesting. I believe Angela was living at her mom, Rita Newcomb's house, and George would come by, but he wasn't around. He didn't stay there. He didn't live there. So, that I find to be interesting. And, that audio from yesterday, I can't it I'm finding it very difficult to understand. I actually just want to call George's attorneys and just ask them, "What were you thinking? What did you hear in that audio that I clearly missed?" Because I listened to it twice. I listened to it live, and then I listened to it last night with you guys. And I don't understand what you were thinking, because it even if you say that context is important, which context is important, that's reasonable. But their argument really was that George called Angela because he was worried that the new owners of their property in Pike were potentially going to sue the Wagners because, they failed to disclose. And I don't even know if that lawsuit would even have merit. I'm not familiar with like real estate law. It's not anything that I've ever looked into or anything. So I find, but you can tell that, yes, that was part of the conversation, but that wasn't the purpose of the call in the first place. The purpose of the call was to let his mother know and to and I don't know another way to say it, to bitch to his mom that BCI was out there, and then to justify, if they were to find anything, why it might be there. Do you know what I mean? It's I don't understand how they can rationally think that that helps their client in any way, shape, or form. And frankly, I'm of the opinion. I'm always of the opinion. Let the jury hear it all. And I think that the brevity that the state is using that they're only playing portions of the audio in open court is because there's so much. Can you imagine if they played the 1,800 hours or whatever it is of audio that they have in open court? This trial would go into December. So I can't understand their logic in that at all. I don't understand their plan. And usually even if I disagree with a defense attorney's or, defense counsel's plan, I at least understand it. And I don't understand this one at all. And Hey, true psych ward, my other half. Good morning. My otra side. The other thing I wanted to talk about while we're just chillaxing here before we get this trial underway is another trial. Okay, so coming up very shortly, we have the Danny Masterson trial. He is facing charges of SA, which is really the R word, but you know how YouTube be. And that's coming up shortly. And I definitely want to cover that. And the reason I want to cover it is because I've been keeping up with like the pretrial hearings and motions filed, and I find the argument from Scientology to be interesting because they've taken the stance they don't want Danny Masterson put on trial, or they don't want Scientology to be put on trial, right? And but at the same time, they're saying, but you know, we were aware of the situation and we handled it according to Scientology. Do you see what I'm saying? It's like they're talking out of both sides of their face. And of course, I'm interested in that part of it because I know that there's going to be a lot of arguing back and forth from the attorneys in this case, the prosecutor and the defense. And you know, I do love a good sidebar and also open court arguments. So I want to cover that case. Then we have, let me just Google her name really quick because, bruh, I'm like 99% sure it's Sarah Boone, but for whatever reason, I want to say Susan Boone because before there was Karen, there was a Susan. So, yeah, it's Sarah Boone. That one is coming up too. And let's see.
Thank you. Please be seated.
Oh, I don't want to watch this part. Hold on a second.
Good morning.
November 7th.
Today is Tuesday, October 18th.
Not intentional.
Another day of trial. In the case
No
of State of Ohio
malice.
Plaintiff versus George
Yeah.
Washington Wagner IV, case number 2018, CR 155. The defendant is present with his attorneys John Parker and Richard Nash.
So, that one I want to cover also. And then there's another one I want to cover too.
Yesterday at the close of the day, witness Julia Everslade was on the witness stand.
But that one has been delayed.
Examining her, an issue arose about whether.
Give me just a second. I'll tell you how long that's been pushed back.
Or states, I guess it would be states exhibits if I have these numbers correctly, WW14, WW15, WW21 should be admitted in their entirety. Portions thereof were played.
Sheila Keene Warren, her case. That one's another one.
So the argument was made by defense that the entirety of those tapes should be played. Argued by each side has been evidence rule 106. I'm a little curious about whether evidence rule 106 is applicable at this point. Some of the issues involved there are for sure, but let me just speak here a little bit about evidence rule 106, which reads that when a witness, when a writing or recorded statement or part thereof is introduced by a party, an adverse party may require the introduction at that time of any other part or any other writing or recorded statement which is otherwise admissible and which ought in fairness to be considered contemporaneously with it. The staff notes to evidence rule 106 state that the rule is a rule of timing, which avoids the need for an adverse party to wait until later to place the writing or recording introduced into proper perspective through cross-examination or rebuttal evidence. It's been stated that the overriding purpose of Evidence Rule 106 is to prevent one party from taking statements out of context and distorting them.
Good morning,
Also said
Oxygen.
and I want to draw the party's attention to a very recent case. It's State versus Singh, which is was decided on September 22nd, 2022 in the 10th Appellate District. 2022 Ohio 32.
Oh, wow. Royal Wave.
That's pretty good discussion. Evidence Rule 106.
Holy moly.
The adverse party it's been held, however, not automatically entitled to have the entire writing or recorded statement introduced into evidence simply by requesting it. Rather, the adverse party has the burden of showing that the additional part sought to be introduced is not only admissible, but also relevant to the portion that has been introduced. So I'm not sure whether this is, in the matter of timing, this is 106 or not. This is cross-examination of a witness rather than bringing in this recording as part of that witness's direct testimony, which seems to be a little different, but some of the rules that would apply to a 106 introduction would apply on cross-examination too. I don't know whether either party has anything further you wish to argue with respect to that or not. Have we argued everything we're going to argue about it? I'm just looking at it a little different way. I don't know whether cross-examining the witness about the statement is the same thing as introducing it under 106, which is a timing issue. But I think some of the law that applies to whether it should be introduced or not also would apply to the cross-examination. I've reviewed WW 14, 15, and 21. I find that in each case, the portion of the recording sought by the defendant to be introduced is not relevant to the portion of the statement introduced by the state of Ohio. I also find that the portion of each of the recordings introduced by the state of Ohio.
Thank you, Dr. Bay.
Have not been introduced out of context in such manner to distort the matters stated in the recording, and it has not been shown that in fairness, the portion of each recording sought to be introduced by the defendant ought to be introduced contemporaneously with that portion of the statement introduced by the state of Ohio. Also, the court finds that in the case of recordings designated as W15 and 21, which involve, it's my recollection, intercepted phone calls between the defendant and Angela Joe Wagner and between the defendant and Chris Newcomb, respectively, the recorded statements of the defendant, if offered by the defendant, would be inadmissible hearsay with no exception being shown. In other words, it would introduce the defendant's testimony without the defendant testifying, basically. Mm-hmm. And therefore would be inadmissible. So the court will sustain the state of Ohio's objection to the introduction of the remaining portion of WW14, WW15, and WW21. Now, that's my ruling on that particular issue. I think we have Ms. Eveslage is still on the witness stand, still being cross-examined, but we will wait till we get the jury in here before we put her up there again. Now, is counsel for each side ready to have the jury brought in?
Judge, I think we're basically ready. Does the court going to permit me to ask for it to be played and the state will make their objection?
That's fine. Just keep the record clear about your requesting it. I'm sustaining it. That's fine. If that's what you prefer to have done. That's fine.
And just for the record, Our objection is not only evidence from 106.
All right,
but Pike's
Marie.
to present a complete defense under the Constitution. Just to make it clear, but we understand the court's ruling. And we're ready.
All right, is the state ready?
Yes, Your Honor.
Let's bring it in. Sure.
Oh, the parade trial. Yeah, hold on a second. Let me turn this down because I feel like I'm screaming over the audio. So yesterday, Mr. Brooks had an opportunity, of course, because he's representing himself, to cross-examine a witness who called the non-emergency police number to report a man in the backyard. Okay. And when he was cross-examining him, Mr. Brooks was asking the witness, basically what, when he called the non-emergency line, what description of the suspect did he give the dispatch? And the witness answered, well, I told them you, which then Mr. Brooks interrupted and said, who is you? And he continued to badger the witness, and the state, of course, objected, and it was sustained. And then here comes Mr. Brooks. Like the state raises the objection, and then it tells what the grounds are for their objection, and they can barely start the first consonant of the word that they're going to state their grounds before he's hollering grounds, which is, he's just rude. And he stood up and he was like, do I look like I'm 160 pounds, 5'9"? And the witness was like, well, you're not your shoes off, yada yada yada. And the state objected again, and of course they were accurate, and they said, to be fair, he doesn't have his dreads, he's not wearing his dreads either, so he's changed his appearance. And it just feels like I have to agree with you guys that are saying that he's re-victimizing everyone every time he questions them. Who is you? It's just, I don't understand. Is he trying to say that it wasn't him? He wasn't there. He's not the person that ran everybody over in the in the parade. Like, I don't understand it.
Defense may presume it's cross-examination.
All right, let's hear what they have to say. And while we do this, I'm going to move the whole shebang outside because it's gorgeous today. All right, here we go.
Yesterday, there were various recordings played. You remember that?
Yes.
All right, and those are recordings you reviewed during your investigation, is that right?
Yes.
All right. I would like to draw your attention to what the state marked as WW15, which is call 1586. I believe that was a call between George and Angela, and a portion of that was played. Do you recall that?
I'd like to look at the transcript just to reference what
Sure.
we're talking about.
15B, I believe. State's exhibit. I was showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit WW15B. Is that the transcript?
Yeah, that's the corresponding transcript to call number 1586.
All right. Did you actually prepare that transcript?
For this testimony, yes. I don't know that I monitored this call to prepare the actual transcript, but I did prepare separate Word documents for this testimony, linking with the presentation.
All right, but you don't recall whether you made the original?
No, I can't say without looking at the system.
Okay. And call 1586 WW15, approximately how long was that telephone call?
The notes here at the top of the transcript say that the original call was approximately 16 minutes in length.
All right, and a portion of that was played yesterday, correct?
Yes, I don't know exactly how long that recording was that was played yesterday, but it was a portion of the original call.
And do you recall whether other topics were discussed on the call that were not played for the jury?
I'd have to look at the original transcript. There are so many calls that we reviewed over the course of the investigation that I don't have them all filed in my brain.
Okay. Well, Judge, we would ask that WW15 be played in its entirety for the jury.
We would object to that, Your Honor.
All right, the court will sustain the state's objection.
All right, if we could go to WW14, that was a call between Jake and Angela Wagner. Do you need the transcript for that one as well?
I'd like to look at it, please.
This is showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit WW14B as in boy. If you could look at that for a moment.
While
Yeah,
she's
this is the
refreshing
transcript
her
that goes to call number
recollection.
1803.
Yes, that's call 1803. And do you know approximately how long that call lasted?
The notes from the system at the top of the page indicate the original call was 13 minutes and 41 seconds in length.
All right, did you prepare the transcript from that or review the actual recording?
I prepared this specific portion of the transcript. I can't, again, without saying it, the system, I'd have to look to see if I monitored the original call.
I wish the judge
Do you
had ruled
remember that
another
a
way.
portion of that 13-minute recording was played for the jury yesterday?
Yeah, it was a portion of the original
All right.
call.
Do you know whether there are other topics discussed in the remaining portion that was not played for the jury?
The same response to the previous question regarding 1586. I have to verify with the original transcript.
Or listen to the recording, right?
Yes.
All right, Judge, we would ask that WW14 call 1803 be played in its entirety.
Any objections from the state?
Yes, Your Honor, the state would object to that.
All right. The court will sustain the state's objections to that request.
All right.
I
And
wish that the
finally,
objection was
State's Exhibit 21.
overruled,
WW21.
and this audio would be played. I think the jury needs to
Showing
hear
you
it.
what's been marked as WW21B. Do you recognize that?
This is the transcript for call number 5183.
And approximately how long is that call?
The system notes at the top of the page indicate the original call was 4 minutes and 4 seconds in length.
All right, and that's between George Wagner and Chris Newcomb, is that right?
Yes.
All right, and I believe a portion of that was played yesterday for the jury, is that right?
Yes.
All right, and other topics were discussed that were not played for the jury, do you know?
I can't say for certain again without looking at the transcript.
All right, Judge, I would ask that the entire call 5183 WW21 be played for the jury.
Any objections?
State would object, Your Honor.
The court will sustain the state's objection to that.
So the various portions of phone calls that were played for the jury yesterday, that's just a tiny fragment of the recordings that you've listened to during the course of this investigation. Is that correct?
I don't think to refer to it as a tiny fragment, I don't think that's accurate. It's a glimpse into various topics that were discussed on the wire. There are certainly other conversations, but these were portions that we felt was very pertinent to share with the jury.
Right, at that time in the investigation, correct? Obviously, at that point in the investigation.
So at this point in the investigation, the records were marked pertinent or non-pertinent, corresponding with the evidence that we had at the time.
Right.
Now we're 5 years later.
Sure.
We may look at things a little bit differently than we did then.
Right. I think you said it was a glimpse, right?
Yes.
Thank you, Judge. I don't think I have any.
Any redirect from the state?
Yes, Your Honor, just briefly.
Yeah, get her to clean up that
Ms.
word glimpse.
Eversley, just to follow up on a question that Mr. Parker asked you yesterday.
Oh, Amelia, I'm sorry, it's cold
You
here,
were asked
babe,
if
or
any
cold there.
civilians
It's not cold here.
accompanied the law enforcement team that went up to the border to attempt to interrogate 4 persons of interest regarding an 8-person homicide case, correct?
Yes.
You indicated that you yourself are considered a civilian.
Yes, I'm not a sworn officer.
Okay. Just to be completely direct, did you ever take any other lay persons such as Tabitha Clater up to the border with you while you're investigating a homicide of this magnitude?
No.
Okay. And any other lay people that were not involved as part of the investigative team?
No.
Okay. You were asked about the count of calls, and I believe you said, so number 340 or 1503, and you'd previously given testimony that indicated a session loosely, and you continue the count. So the next session would be 1504 or 1505 or 1506. Does that also include text messages?
Yes.
Okay, so if there's a series of texts, each one of those texts would be considered an event, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then I just wanted to clarify something. State's exhibit, I don't remember. XX8.
I'm going to mute. There's goings on in the hood.
Yes.
I'd object to this, Jim.
Basis.
Getting into something that we did not get into across examination.
Are we conducting another direct, or is this a response to the cross, or?
Well, I mean, I could do it in another time that she testifies, but I figured since it was on topic for her testimony this time, that I would follow up on this. It's just one question.
Yeah, but you have to limit the scope of your redirect to the questions that were asked during cross-examination. You can't do that, Counselor. Come on.
She will be recalled, and she is going to continue to testify about the Wagner laptop. So again, I just thought it would be tidier to do it while we're still on this.
Well, I'm going to sustain the
Yeah,
defense objection.
that's the correct
Is it in redirect
ruling.
or something? That was
Okay.
I know you want to be tidy, but no. You need to get her to clean up the glimpse.
And again, Ms. Eveslage, when you select portions that are to be recorded and/or played for the jury, you select portions that you deem pertinent to both the investigation and to the case itself.
Yes.
Okay. I have another question.
Any further cross?
No, thank you.
All right, you may step down. State may call its next witness.
Your Honor, the state would call Lieutenant Ryan White to the stand.
I really, just while we're waiting, I really feel like I found my little niche here in covering these trials, because I don't know about you guys, but just I always learn something from it. And one thing that I've learned through watching the testimony of other trials and objections raised, sustained, and even overruled is learning what counsel can ask
Raise your right hand. Do you
on a
solemnly swear
redirect.
that the testimony you are about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, as you shall answer unto God?
I do.
You may be seated. State may examine.
Thank you, Your Honor.
With that being said, never would I ever think that I know enough to represent my case, to represent myself in any case.
Lieutenant Brian White.
And Lieutenant, again, we've already covered for the jury that you were the primary crime scene agent in this
Oh,
case,
wow,
correct?
Royal
Correct.
Wave.
Okay. And can you tell us, was there a point in this investigation where Jake, George, and Billy Wagner were required to appear at the Pike County Sheriff's Office in order for you to take various measurements of their feet and also to get fingerprints and palm prints?
That's correct.
Okay. And can you tell us why that was conducted?
The investigative team had made the decision to have an outside expert review some of the evidence that was found in the case, and this specifically footwear impressions. So we contracted with a forensic expert by the name of William Bodziak, and he's out of right around Daytona Beach, Florida. And he's one of the foremost experts in footwear impressions. He's trained laboratory personnel. He's done crime scene work, collecting it in the field. And he's really, really one of the...
Well, I think the question, I'll sustain the objection beyond the point where we're describing the witness's opinion of Mr. Boziak's expertise, but I will let the rest of that answer stand.
Okay, thank you, Honor. You indicated that the investigative team made a decision to have an outside expert. Did you participate in that decision?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And did you participate in recommending Mr. Boziak?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And you were familiar with him prior to that time when you made that recommendation?
That's correct.
Okay. And had you made contact with him prior to requiring Jake and George and Billy Wagner to come to the sheriff's office to get these, conduct these measurements and other things?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And did you receive instruction by Mr. Boziak as to what items he needed and how to go about obtaining them?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And can you just tell us generally what it was that you were setting out to do?
He gave me the list of things that he wanted in order to be able to do a comparison, and the things that were required of our agency to collect and give to him.
Okay. And so can you tell us what some of the items that you had already collected that he was interested in?
Objection.
I'm sorry.
Objection to what Mr. Boziak was interested in.
Well, I'm going to agree with that objection.
Go ahead.
The evidence that we recovered at the crime scenes was what he was going to be comparing.
Okay. And specifically, what evidence are you referring to?
The footwear impressions recovered from scene 3 and scene 1.
Okay. And can you tell us what kinds of things did he want you to do regarding the feet of Jake and George and Billy Wagner?
He requested that
Could overrule the objection. Answer.
He requested that that I take a tracing using a pen of the right and left foot of all three, Jake, Billy, and George. He requested that we use a measuring device to measure the feet without shoes on. So it'd be the same, we use the same type of device that you would use at a shoe store. And took measurements from that. And he also requested a mold or a foam impression of the right and left feet of all three.
Okay. And so that was something that you set about to conduct and then provide to him, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I'm going to hand you what is marked as States Exhibit YY1. And if you could look at that first, and then I will ask you to open that up just so we see what exactly that looks like.
Okay.
And can you tell us what that is?
That's a foam impression of the right foot of Jake Wagner.
Okay, and if you don't mind opening that up.
I think you're right there.
Don't know where they, oh. tell us, was that material that you already had, or did you have to order that?
We had to order this. We didn't have any
Okay.
thoughts.
And was this something you'd ever done before?
I have never done that before, no.
Okay. And can you tell us what date that was that you obtained that, you conducted these things?
July 23rd, 2018.
Okay. And then I'll go ahead and just have you identify these other items. YY2.
That's the left foot foam impression from Jake Wagner.
And then YY3.
Now,
No.
this part I'm very interested in because they need to put these shoes on George Wagner's feet, not
That
Jake's,
is
because Jake's already,
the right foot impression from George Wagner IV.
That's what I handed you.
Right foot impression, yeah.
Okay. And YY4.
Sorry, you
This
guys.
is the foam impression of the left foot of George Wagner IV.
Okay. George Wagner IV, also being known as George.
George, yeah.
Okay. And then YY5.
This is the biofoam impression or the foam impression of the right foot of George Wagner III or Billy Wagner.
Okay. And then YY6.
That is the left foot impression, foam impression from Billy Wagner.
Okay. And again, these were all collected on that same July 23rd of 2018.
That's correct.
They all three came down at the same time.
Yes.
And then you indicated that you were also asked to do tracings, correct?
Yes, I was.
I'm going to hand you what's being marked as State's Exhibit YY7. And same thing, if you could go ahead and tell us what that is, and then I will ask you to open that up and you can show it to the jury.
This is an envelope that contains the right foot and left foot tracing of Jake Wagner.
And then handing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit YY8, and you do not need to remove that.
This is an envelope containing the right and left foot tracings of George Wagner.
Okay. And then YY9.
The right and left foot tracings of Billy Wagner.
And then YY10, if you could tell us what this is.
That's an envelope that contains the pen that I used to do the tracings of the feet for all three, George, Billy, and Jake.
Okay. And then you indicated that you also did measurements by a contraption that you often see in shoe stores. Can you just describe to us what that was? And then did you also collect those measurements?
Yeah, the
A contraption. Oh my
foot
gosh.
measuring tool is the
I
same
think it's a
one,
device,
the
not a
same device that you
There you
see in
go.
a shoe store when they measure your foot at a shoe store. And it measures the length and the
Not
width
sure it's a
and the
contraption.
arch length of your foot. And in order to document that, each individual, their right and left foot, they stepped on the device and photographs were taken of the measurements as the device was set with each foot in the device.
Okay. Yeah. Doing the west coast? Sure.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Okay, so you were in the middle of describing the measurements that are taken with that device, correct?
Yes.
And you collected those measurements, and was that something that you also provided to Mr. Boziak?
Yes, I
Okay. And can you tell us, regarding these exhibits that you've just identified, States Exhibit Y1 through Y10?
Or good afternoon or good evening.
Along with the measurements, and I believe the other, any other information and evidence that Mr. Boziak wanted. Were you responsible for actually delivering that to Mr. Boziak?
Yes, I was.
Okay. And did you actually hand deliver it?
I did. I drove it to his office in Florida and hand delivered it. And then when he was through with his examination, I picked it up from him and brought it back to London BCI office.
Okay. You drive
I drove.
down there? Okay. And why did you choose to do that as opposed to mailing it or something else?
They were just, they were pieces of evidence and it's best to be hand delivered and handled, for chain of custody purposes. So that's why the decision was made to drive it.
Okay. And do you recall approximately how long it took him to do that?
I believe it was around 2 days to do his examination.
Okay. And were you then responsible for bringing it back at the end of that?
Yes,
And put them back in the property room where they remained?
I did. When he was through with his examination, I picked him up and drove him to our office there at BCI.
Okay. All right. And you indicated that on this same date, you were also seeking to obtain both fingerprints and palm prints for each of the 3 male Wagners, correct? Jake, George, and Billy?
That's correct.
Okay. And can you tell us why you were interested in palm prints specifically?
The investigation team, I don't know which specific investigator, but there was a photograph that was discovered. and it was of a person holding a gun, and it was believed to be Jake Wagner. And there was enough, the photograph showed enough of the ridge detail in the palm that an attempt was made to match the palm print in the photograph to one of the Wagner's palm prints.
Okay. First of all, I'm going to hand you. Okay. I'm going to hand you first what's been marked as State's Exhibit ZZ1. And if you could just look at the outside of that and then open and remove what is inside of that, please.
Okay. It's a folder containing 2 photographs.
Okay, and if you could show the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what the photographs are or describe them.
There are 2 photographs. They're what I described earlier about a hand holding a pistol and some of the ridge detail in the palms exposed.
Going to hand you now what's been marked as State's Exhibit ZZ1. If you could tell us what that is. And go ahead and open it after you've identified it, or it might already be open for you.
This is major case prints, which major case prints include.
You marked the prior one ZZ1.
Yeah, thank you. That should be ZZ2. Thank you, ma'am.
So the description is major case prints from Jake Wagner. And major case prints are both fingerprints and palm prints are collected. So they call them major case prints. But. So there would be the fingerprint card. And then that would be the palm prints. They're collected.
Okay, and again, those were collected on this same date, is that correct?
That's correct, July 23rd, 2018.
And handing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit ZZ3, if you could tell us what those are.
It's an envelope. The description is major case prints from George Wagner, July 23rd, 2018.
Okay, and then ZZ4.
That's major case prints from George Wagner III, Billy Wagner, July 23rd, 2018.
Okay, and again, much like the other evidence that you collect in this case, are those maintained then ultimately submitted to the lab for comparison and then returned to the property room?
That's correct.
And is that the extent of tasks that you performed at the sheriff's office on July 23rd of 2018 regarding Jake George and Billy Wagner.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay.
We can mark it inside ZB2. You can mark the individual onto ZB2 8%.
Okay, I'm gonna go back to ZZ2, the one that I asked you to remove the various items for, and I'm just going to mark them and I'll ask you to confirm. I'm gonna do the fingerprints as ZZ2A. I'm gonna put it on the back here. Okay, and then I can't tell, well, there's your left. Your other left.
Yeah.
ZZ2B is the left palm print of Jake Wagner, correct?
That's correct.
And then ZZ2C will be the right palm print of Jake Wagner.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now I have another question, John.
The defense may cross-examine.
All right. Thank you, Judge. Just a few questions. Good morning.
More,
Good to see you again.
you too.
So it was July, can you help me with the date again? July
23rd.
July 23rd, 2018
That's correct.
is when George came down to the sheriff's office and gave these various items.
That's correct.
All right. Did you or one of your colleagues take photographs of him as he appeared that day?
Yes, I did.
All right. Showing you what's been marked as Wagner Exhibit 29. Do you recognize this?
Yes, sir.
What is that?
The photograph I took that day of George Wagner.
All right, that's George Wagner over here, right?
Yes.
All right. And in this photo, he appears to have his socks and shoes off, is that right?
That's correct.
And that's to cooperate in the investigation?
Yes.
Judge, may I publish this to the jury?
Yeah.
Sir, could you just publish to the jury the photograph that you took of George and show everyone so they can see it? Do you need him to come down this way?
Well,
All right, that's
that's
fine.
George.
All right, thank you very much, sir.
Yes, sir.
Clearly, the BCI was not interested in taking it from a flattering angle
I
because
think I have
it's
any questions.
not,
Any,
but I don't understand the
I have just a
point.
moment.
I suppose the point is that George cooperated, but that, beyond that, I'm not exactly sure what the point was.
July 18, how many years was that after the homicides happened?
I've been over 2 years.
I have another question, John.
all right, anything further from the defense?
No.
You may step down.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Statement calls next witness.
What's the,
This time, I believe there is a stipulation between the parties with respect to that.
All right.
what's going on, Amelia? Should we switch over to that one? I'm so torn on covering that trial. I have to be honest with you guys. There's part of me that wants to cover it because I think it's always interesting when a defendant chooses to represent themselves. But at the same time, I feel like this specific defendant is doing it.
The parties would agree and stipulate that the palm print.
That the defendant is doing it for attention, and I don't want to give it to him, but like, what's my little, you know, like it's, I have a little channel.
Was compared
Well, let
to the
me,
known palm print collected from Edward Jacob Wagner. And the picture I just showed actually is State Exhibit ZZ1. So that palm print in that picture was
really?
compared to the known
Okay.
palm
Okay. Uh-oh.
print collected
Okay, there we
from
go.
Edward Jacob Wagner that has been identified.
Hi,
as State
Sugar Beet.
Exhibit
Good morning. Good to see ya.
ZZ2C. These prints were compared by the lab of the Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation, the West Virginia State Police Crime Lab, and a private forensics lab, Black and White Forensics LLC. All three labs reached an opinion to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty that the palm print from the hand depicted in State's Exhibit XX11A and ZZ1, the palm print from that picture was identified as being the palm
He's
print. Of
always
Edward
doing
Jacob
that.
Wagner.
He's just making a mockery of the justice system, and that I can't. The Lou can't abide.
All right. The jury is instructed that the jury is to accept that stipulation to be established as fact as fully as if it had been established through evidence here in the courtroom.
Your Honor, maybe approach.
Yes.
Oh, God. What you got to approach about? Let's get this show on the road. I thought you guys were interested in being tidy, ma'am. I don't know if y'all can hear that, but I can. Nestor's in here, and he's asleep, but he's dreaming, and his little nails are scraping across the tile floor. So I keep muting so that you guys don't have to hear that. I hope you don't hear it. It's distracting, but I'm not going to wake him up or make him move. I'll just mute. I feel like Amelia, part of him does want to get kicked out because I think he wants to have, first of all, I feel like obviously part of it is to make a mockery of our justice system.
Timing of witnesses, when you have several witnesses, sometimes it's difficult to.
Excuse me, Your Honor. I don't want to talk over you.
So I'm going to take a break right now.
Bless it. Okay. You got to take a break. That's cool.
Make it a 15 minutes.
All right. We'll be back in 15 minutes. All right, Your Honor. We're going to go over and see what Mr. Brooks is up to today, because he's always up to something. All right. Let's see what's going on over here.
She just started the first grade.
Here we go.
My son is the oldest. My girls are the youngest.
See what Mr. Brooks is up to. I think they're playing audio of his interrogation interview.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Grew up here. We left Detroit when I was I don't even think I was walking and talking yet. So Milwaukee's home, Wisconsin's home. born and raised.
Okay. Not working right now, right?
No, not at the moment.
What do you do when you're working? What do you like consider your job?
The last job I just had, I was working at a like a sheet metal place.
Okay.
You know, basically just they would have like these like hook things, like you just basically it's strenuous because you got to do a lot of lifting and it's a lot of heavy lifting, but you basically just hanging these pieces on these hooks and they're going through the thing, they're steaming them, painting them, then they come back around and then you just box them up and load them.
So you're not married?
No.
You have a girlfriend?
Yeah.
You live with her?
No.
What's her name? Your girlfriend's name?
Her name is Erica Patterson.
How does she spell it?
Erika.
P-A.
Yeah, Patters.
Rob, what are you doing over here, YouTube?
Street in Milwaukee. The right address?
Yes, sir.
Is that an apartment or a house?
It's a house.
Okay. What's the zip code there?
Sorry, you guys.
53209.
Okay. And last grade you completed in school?
12th.
Grade? Okay. Graduated high school?
Yes, sir.
What school did you go to in Milwaukee?
Riverside.
Riverside?
Yes, sir. Milwaukee Riverside Tigers. I see you smile. You know about Riverside, man?
I heard things.
We kicked y'all button football.
It was West Dallas.
Oh, no.
I don't think we play Riverside.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So yeah, I appreciate all
West
the
Alice
cooperation
is
and
where
all the
Jeffrey Dahmer's
dialogue
mom
we've had,
lived, just
to this
or
point now.
grandmother lived, excuse me.